My name is Edaora, but everyone calls me Eda. I never knew my grandfather well. He was a quiet man. A lawyer. A reader. He kept his books neat, his words few, and his heart locked away. When he died 2 years ago, I thought that was all there was to know. But then, on a hot Tuesday in May, I found a letter in his attic. It was old, yellowed at the edges, brittle like dry leaves. On the front, in careful handwriting, it said, "To Chioma Okoro. Department of English. ABU, Zaria. May 12, 1995. It had never been sent. And that single piece of paper would lead me to a love story buried under 30 years of silence, and to a woman who had been waiting all that time to be remembered. I was cleaning out his house in Kaduna, sorting old photos, dusty law books, and tins of forgotten things. My father stood in the doorway, watching me. He looked tired, like he always does since Mom passed. "Be careful with those," he said softly. He never let anyone touch them. Not even your mom. I didn't understand then. But I do now. Some things aren't just objects. They are secrets. And secrets have weight. When I held that letter, I felt it, the weight of a life unlived, a love unspoken. I knew I had to find Chioma Okoro. I found her in Ibadan, in a quiet house with red hibiscus blooming by the door. She was older now, silver hair in a neat bun, eyes sharp but sad. When I said my name, Nwosu, she went very still. Like someone had called her name in a dream. I held out the letter. She looked at it like it might burn her. "That life is buried," she said. And she closed the door. "But you can't bury love forever. Not in Nigeria. Not when it's been waiting so long to breathe." In 1994, Zaria was full of young people with big dreams. Students gathered under neem trees, arguing about books, writing poems, and dreaming of a free Nigeria. My grandfather, Emeka, was studying law. Chioma was studying literature. They met at a poetry reading. He told her eyes were lanterns in the dark of military nights. She laughed and threw a peanut in the air. They fell in love quietly, sharing suyo, walking home late, holding hands when no one was looking. But this was Nigeria under Abacha. Love across tribes was dangerous. Love that questioned power was dangerous. One night, soldiers came to campus. Emeka was arrested. When he was released, his family told him, "If you go back to Zaria, you are dead to us." So he stayed in Enugu. And he wrote Chioma a letter, but never sent it. I sat on Chioma's curb the next day, stubborn and lost. Her grandson, Tund, found me there. He was a medical student, kind eyes, quiet voice. He handed me a bottle of Chapman. "My grandmother doesn't talk about Zaria," he said. "Not since 95. "Why not?" I asked. He smiled sadly. "She says love got her arrested once. Not by soldiers, by memory." I didn't know what that meant then. But I do now. Memory can hold you tighter than any jail. That night, rain fell like the sky was crying for them. I brought Emeka's journal, the red notebook he kept hidden. Inside were poems, notes, and pages of unsent words to Chioma. She sat at her table, hands trembling. She read one line aloud. "How do I choose between blood and breath?" Tears fell on the page. Then, slowly, she took the letter. Opened it. And for the first time in 30 years, she let herself remember the girl she was, the girl who loved a man named Emeka in a time when love was an act of courage. The letter said, "Chioma, if you're reading this, I failed you. Not because I didn't love you, but because I was afraid. Afraid of exile. Afraid of shame. Afraid of becoming another name on a list of the disappeared. But you were my revolution. Not in the streets, but in my soul. He wrote those words in a small room in Zaria, with rain on the roof and hope running out. She read them in a quiet house in Ibadan, with rain on the roof again. 30 years apart. But in that moment, they were together. Because love doesn't die. It just waits. We took the letter to Enugu, to Emeka's grave. Chioma placed it on the stone. "You were worth the wait, Emeka," she whispered. "Even if it was only in my heart." Ton stood beside me. He didn't say much. Just held my hand. And in that simple touch, I felt it, the difference between then and now. In 1995, love had to hide. But in 2024, we could stand in the open, hand in hand, and say, "This is ours." I wrote my final university paper about them. I called it Unsent Letters. I told my teachers, history isn't just in big events. It's in the quiet choices. In the letters never mailed. In the love that chose to wait. In the audience, Ton smiled. Chioma sat like a queen, calm, proud, finally at peace. Afterward, we walked through the botanical garden. No rush. No fear. Just two young people in love, in a country that's learning to let love breathe. Emeka's pocket watch still doesn't work. But I wind it every morning. Not to tell time. But to remember. Remember that love survived bullets. Survived silence. Survived shame. And because of that, because of Chioma and Emeka, Ton and I get to walk in the light. So here's to unsent letters. To second chances. To Nigeria, where even in the darkest years, someone was always writing a love poem in the margins. And to my grandfather. Your revolution didn't end in Zaria. It's walking through a garden in Ibadan. Holding my hand.